Hey guys, Key here from KegLand and talking today about our new Fresh Cubed Fresh Wort Kits. Now these Fresh Wort Kits are completely malt sugars fresh wort, so we hasn't gone through that evaporative process like a lot of canned kits. So if you go into the supermarket and you see like an extract kit, which comes in typically, a tin, sometimes they're in a sachet as well, that is malt extract. So somebody has essentially made some type of wort like this at some stage and then evaporated all of that water out of the kit. Now, by evaporating a lot of the water out of the kit, they're saving a lot of money in transit to freight that product to the retailer or to the store. They've saved a lot of money in packaging because obviously one can is going to be cheaper than all of this packaging, like a bladder and a box and so forth. And therefore they're able to provide a home brewing kit to you at a very low cost. So those kits, definitely they're going to be the cheapest if you're getting an extract kit. However, in that evaporative process, it does damage the malts. You're damaging some of the fatty acids and you're also darkening the wort as well. A lot of you guys who have started off home brewing and tried a can, you'll notice that maybe it says it's a Corona recipe or something like that, but you can never quite get to that bright color that you'll see in a lot of finished beers that you buy on the shelf, which are made out of real malt. So malt extract has that darkness issue, you lose some hop aroma and color, and then also you denature the flavor, so it's never going to taste quite as good. Fresh wort, on the other hand, we go to quite a lot of effort to make fresh wort from real grain, just like a normal brewery. So you're going to get results from these types of kits, which are just as good as doing all grain brewing yourself, except it's a lot easier and we've sped up the process. So literally you're chopping it open and pouring it into the fermenter and chucking yeast on top. The other thing I should mention is our fresh wort kits will range in price. Now please look at what you're getting in the kit, because if you want the absolute base fresh wort kit, it's going to be quite inexpensive. In some cases, some of our fresh wort kits are actually just the same cost as extract, so they're really, really great value. The shipping will naturally be a little bit more expensive, so that's something you're just going to have to deal with. But some of our fresh wort kits come with heaps of stuff added. So if you look at our NEPA kit, it includes the yeast, so we put a premium Verdant yeast in that one, and we also include 200 grams of hops. That's over 20 bucks worth of hops, which is in the kit as well. So please bear in mind when you're comparing somebody's other fresh wort kits and this fresh wort kit, the value that you're getting here is extraordinary. Now when you get the kit, use a pair of scissors rather than a Stanley knife or some other type of knife, because there is a bladder in here. So if you stick a knife down in here, you're going to puncture the bladder and it's lights out for this kit. So yeah, use a pair of scissors, slice open the sticky tape like so, open up the box like this. Now inside the kit, you'll find some of the kits will include free labels already. Now not all the kits will be like this. Some of the new kit varieties, we may not have time to make the labels and get them shipped out with you, in which case they'll be downloadable on the web as a PDF and you can print them out yourself. However, some of the labels will be included. So you've got little labels for the tops of the bottle caps. You can peel these adhesive labels off and stick them on the bottles of your finished brew. Or the other thing you can do is if you've got the Bishop tap handles, you can cut out these labels here and slide them into your Bishop tap handle if you're putting this beer into keg later on. The other thing you'll notice is some of the kits will have 3 different labels already in here. That's because this base wort will essentially make 3 different kits depending on how much water I add, or if I add a different yeast or different hops to ferment this product out. So today I'm using the All-Rounder. This is one of our top selling fermenters. To take the lid off, some of you guys have mentioned that it's a bit of a tight fit, so I'm going to show you a small little trick, which is just undo that neck ring here, and then if you get a 5-in-1 tool, or look, pretty much any old object, go underneath the edge of the carbonation cap here, and you can actually lever the cap up like that. That's an easy way to take the lid off. So I'm going to get this, and it's always handy when you're doing any type of fermentation to have a jug of sanitizer nearby. So I'm just going to drop that right in there. The other thing I'm going to do is sanitize my hands as well, just in case I incidentally touch anything. That will at least help the situation. I mean, I'm going to try to avoid touching anything as much as possible. The other thing I'll do is get this bag of wort here. Now I've already got the water in there. This particular recipe calls for 9 litres of water to be in there. Now if I fermented this out as it is, it's going to be quite a high percentage, sort of between 5 and 10%, or close to 10% roughly. However, some of the kits, or most of the kits, will have at least part of the recipe, or one of the recipes, whereby it hits around about 5% alcohol, and that will generally call for you to add around about 5 litres of water for some of them, or as much as 7 litres or 9 litres for others. So what I've got is a pair of scissors. You'll notice on the bag here, that there's also a cap. So you can unscrew that and use the pouring spout. Look, I find it just a lot faster to just cut the corner of the bag open. So I'm going to do that. So I get a little bit of this ethanol spray. Spray that onto my scissors as well, like this. Cut out the corner of the bag. And honestly, this is probably the hardest bit about this kit. Just getting it into the opening of the fermenter. Now, feel free to make as much splash as you like for this bit, because what we want to do is aerate the wort as much as possible. So we're trying to get a lot of air from the ambient atmosphere into that wort and dissolved into solution, so you got a high level of oxygen to start with. And then just chuck the yeast straight on top. Now with the Lullerman yeast, these are made so you can put them straight on top of the wort. So I've got my sanitized scissors and I've just sanitized the packet there as well. And I'm going to sprinkle that on top like so. So that is how to make beer. Literally these fresh wort kits, it's almost like you're cheating. Now, to get the optimum results, really you want to get good temperature control. Now, certainly if you've just got a living room, some people do it out in the garage, but if you want to get those predictable results every single time, invest in good temperature control. So get a temperature control box, which you can plug in a heating belt and maybe an old fridge or something like that, so you can heat and cool. Or alternatively, we've got these fermentation chambers, which are another great option for a turnkey solution. Now, I'm actually doing 2 ales today. Because they're both ales, I can do them in the same fridge at the same time, which is obviously going to be the same temperature. And I'm going to use the same temperature profile to run this whole batch. So I'm going to get this one here, which is my coffee stout. Whack that on the top shelf like so. And then what I'm going to do is put my Nipa on the bottom. So the Nipa is using the Verdant ale yeast, and this one is actually using Nottingham for the coffee stout. Both really fantastic recipes and some of my favourites. Now the top fermenter here I've got hooked up to the spunding valve, which is integrated into the display of the wrapped fermentation chamber. The bottom one here though, I'm just going to use an additional spunding valve like this. So I've got the blow tie spunding valve. I've preset both of these spunding valves at a very low pressure, really just 1 or 2 psi, just enough to get a very small reading on the gauge and just to make sure that I've got a tiny bit of pressure in there. So when I open the lid later on, I've got a bit of off-gassing when I add dry hops or coffee later on. So I've got the other end of the spunding valve tube here, which I'm just going to put into this cup of sanitizer there. So just in case I've got a very active fermentation and there's some overflow, it's going to end up going into the cup rather than all over the inside of the fridge. We're at the end of the fermentation process, and with this stout, this particular recipe calls for some coffee to be added. Now, you can get cold brew coffee if you want to. Cold brew coffee is a great way of adding some really good coffee flavour without any bitterness. But in this particular instance, I'm going to use coffee beans because I've just got some that I had in the cupboard. Now, with these coffee beans, you can just add them directly in the fermenter dry if you really want to. However, I've made a bit of a tincture and just put it in a little bit of vodka. Some people use bourbon and stuff like that. By you putting some alcohol in the beans and giving them a pre-soak first, the ethanol in there, or the alcohol, essentially will draw more of the flavour out of the beans. And the other thing is it'll sanitise the outside of the beans as well. So that's one sort of dual effect. So what I'm going to do is let the pressure off here like that. Because I've been fermenting under pressure, another nice thing is I've got a small amount of carbonation in here, and that's going to be off-gassing. So once I take the lid off, I've got less of an issue with oxidation as well. And look, with the stout, oxidation is not as much an issue as a lot of the lighter beers. So that's another thing which is also playing on my side. So I'm undoing this ring, undone the pressure, levering that up. And what I'm going to do is just chuck these coffee beans straight in there like so. And that's it. Because I'm using whole beans, I really want to leave those beans in contact for a little while. So, you know, unlike using grounds where I would get the extraction very quickly, the whole beans will take some time. So it's worth actually leaving them in there, giving them a bit of a shake every now and then taking a sample out the top and tasting it and seeing what you think of the flavour. So for this Nipa, what I'm going to do is just lift this blow tie off here like so. Once again, let the pressure out first. Undo this ring and then lever that cap up like that. Then I'm going to add 200 grams of hops. Now 200 grams is quite a bit of hops for this style. You'll see a lot of other recipes out there which, look, they're a bit thrifty and maybe don't call for as much hops, but honestly, to do a really juicy NEPA properly, this amount of hops makes a big difference. So I'm going to chuck them in there. Once again, because it's already very slightly carbonated, that is working in my favour, and that's one of the benefits, I guess, of the all-rounder is, yeah, you're going to be off-gassing as soon as you open that lid up. Now, if I had a gas cylinder next to me, which I don't, what I would also consider doing, especially if it's one of those really oxygen-sensitive beers, is putting some CO2 in here and then purging it back out with the pressure release valve, because a little bit of oxygen definitely would have got into that headspace. The other thing is I have got towards the end of this fermentation process, but I haven't crash chilled completely yet. This is now sitting at just under 20 degrees Celsius. So the other thing is I still have some yeast activity here, and that'll scrub out some of the oxygen as well, and that's going to work in my favour too. The other thing I'll say is once you add the hops into the fermenter at this stage, I would give the thing a bit of a shake. So just give it a bit of a shake like that, and then come back in about another 1 day and give it another shake. And you'll notice that the hops will be sitting right at the top here. And the problem with the hops all sitting at the top here, and this is one of the beauties of having a clear fermenter, is that they can foul up sometimes the floating dip tube. However, if you give a bit of a shake, you can see them then starting to settle down. And once they're sort of cleared past where the floating dip tube is, you know you're all good to start drawing or racking off out of the fermenter into your next vessel. Alrighty, so this has been chilling for a couple of days now, and it's ready to transfer off into either keg or bottle. So if you guys are starting to get into home brewing, a lot of you guys will use bottles like this. So this is a PET 500ml bottle, or you can use these swing top bottles as well. They're a bit of a favourite with a lot of home brewers that are starting off. You can also get these handcrafted labels like this, so you can stick these on the front of the bottle if you want to make it look professional. However, look, I'm into kegging, obviously, and I find bottles a bit of a waste of time. So yeah, I am going to keg this off, and some of our guys, you know, might want to know how to keg if they were thinking about getting into it. So because these guys are both carbonated, what I like to do is transfer out of here into a keg and make sure I use a little bit of back pressure in here as well. So the back pressure is going to stop that fobbing or foaming essentially. So normally with a carbonated product like this, if it comes out of here, it comes down the dip tube and splashes everywhere, I'm going to end up with a lot of head, and then by the time I'm getting to the top of this fill, I'm going to get, even though I might have that much head space, it's going to be spewing out a whole lot of foam, and that's a real pain in the backside. So if you've already got a blow tie, and a lot of you guys who are doing pressure fermentations do have one of these already, then you may as well use it to fill up kegs also. So the blow tie units, there's something you can really, really easily set up by attaching to something else which is pressurized. So I've already got some head space in this. The CO2 is already in here from the fermentation process, and because I had it carbonating as well from the CO2 line. So I'm going to drop this on like that, and you can see the pressure will shoot up like that, and it's blowing out that side. I just need a little bit of pressure in there to charge it, and once I've got the pressure in here, I can actually keep unwinding the knob until I get to 5 psi. Now I've already done this one, so it's ready to go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put this on the keg, or I would normally put this on the keg like so. However, in this particular instance, I'm going to show you another little trick, which is I've already got this guy full of CO2, and I've sanitized this one. Oh, actually, my mate Ollie here sanitized it for me. Thanks, mate. I've got this one sanitized. He's already written the label on here. I will say it's a good idea to write on these labels before you fill the beer. Otherwise, once they get really cold, you get a whole lot of condensation and the permanent markers don't really work. So that's really annoying. So definitely write what you're going to put into the keg before you start filling. And then instead of hooking this up onto here, I'm actually going to use one of these PET bottles kind of like as a receiving tank. So instead of putting the blow tie on here and keeping the residual pressure in the keg only, what I'm going to do is put the blow tie on here. So as I'm filling the beer up, it's coming out of here through a jumper lead, which I've just got around here somewhere, yeah, just on the bench here, and that's going to feed into the keg, and then the gas the beer's going in here, the gas is going to overflow out of here into this here, and that does two things. Firstly, it means that gas I'm using to purge out this bottle, and I know that I've got slightly over 19 litres in here, so whatever excess I've got, I'm going to then end up with a pre-purged bottle here, which I can also fill with what leftover beer I've got from the fermentation process. And a lot of the kits you buy, they're going to make more than 19 litres. Some of them are 20 litres, or some of them are even 23 litres, depending on the kit type you've got. So yeah, it's really handy to have one of these at hand. The other thing is, this acts as a little receiving tank and kind of a bit of protection for the blow tie unit itself. So if I happen to get a little bit of foam starting to build up here, like I was saying before, if that happens to come out of the post, it goes into the blow tie, and I have to wash the blow tie out. Pretty annoying. Doesn't take a lot of effort, but you still have to take it apart. It's just a little bit easier if I have this onto this sort of receiver. So I get a bit of beer, it flows out here. It's going to be captured in here before it goes through the blow tie first. So that's the other reason why I do that. So that's a good little tip, and I'm going to throw that one in for free for you guys. All right, so I've already done the stout. I actually was going to record the stout, however, I ran out of battery on the microphone, so I'm actually going to show you doing the transfer on the Nipa. Now, the Nipa is already carbonated, so I'll get a bit of beer in here and have a bit of a taste. Oh, wow, I can already smell the hops. When you get that much hops in a beer, oh yeah, it becomes really juicy and aromatic, so that is delicious. I'm going to disconnect this tap. Now, of course, some of you guys, if you don't have a kegerator and you have the ability to chill this thing, there's nothing wrong with drinking the entire lot of beer directly from the fermenter rather than racking off to keg. But I should say, once you've got hops inside the fermenter, it's not really a great idea to leave that hops inside the fermenter for a long period of time, because they start to decompose, and eventually you'll get some really grassy notes coming out of the hops, and it's not great. So generally speaking, once I've added dry hops, you know, if you drink it quick, you're all right, but if it's more than a few days, you really want to rack it off into bottles or keg in this case. So hooking up the jumper lead, and that is the start of the transfer. Now in a few moments, because I've got 20 psi set on here, obviously that's going to push the beer out of here pretty quickly and then into this keg. You can probably, I'm not sure if you can hear that, but a little bit of gas transfer sound, that's pretty normal. The other thing I should mention is, if you are doing this and you want to speed up the process, highly recommend getting the duo-tights, which have the 3/8 push-in, or the 9.5mm that is. By going up to the larger hose size, this transfer process will happen literally double the speed. Now, as you're getting towards the end of the filling process, it's sometimes not a bad idea to loosen off these straps here on the fermenter, and this will enable me to tilt the fermenter one way or another. Because it's a clear fermenter, what I can do is see the dip tube inside the fermenter and tilt the fermenter in such a way that it's going to extract absolutely everything. Now, you want to be a little bit careful when you're doing this, because I don't want to disrupt that yeast bed at the bottom and get a whole lot of yeast sucked into the dip tube. However, if I just tilt it that way, I'm probably going to extract another maybe half a litre or so out of the fermenter. Anyway, look, that's pretty much it for the process. As you can see, you know, I've got the blow tie attached, so that's going to really keep a bit of head pressure into this bad boy, and it's going to mean that I'm not going to get too much fobbing in this thing. The other thing I'll note is I'm using a set of shop scales. Look, some of the guys in the office use shop scales, so they wanted me to show them in the video, so that's what some of the guys do. That means I get a pretty good indication of where I am filling the keg up. Obviously, you can look here, you can see, I know that I'm pretty much about here anyway, because I've got cold beer in here and the condensation on the outside of the keg is showing me what that level is anyway. So, look, I don't generally bother with the shop scales. The other thing is, some people use shop scales because they like to know to fill the keg before it gets to the gas post. Now, there's pros and cons. I personally fill right to the absolute brim till it's overflowing out of the gas post, but that does come at a small risk, because if you've got a higher pressure in here and hook this up onto your regulator, you can suck beer up out of the gas post into your regulator. So you just got to be a little bit careful if you're going to fill absolutely to the brim of the keg. So as you can see, that's the end of the fill process. I've now got this keg here, which is full to the brim, and then I've got this PET 2.5 litre bottle, which has just enough beer which I can take to a party or drink down at the park or whatever. But that is how I would recommend to do a closed loop transfer fill, into a 19-litre corny keg. So if you've got a friend who's really making bad quality extract beer, share this video with them so they hear about these awesome Fresh Wort Kits. If you want to hear about anything else that we've got coming out, definitely subscribe to the video below in the bottom right hand corner, or sign up to our Facebook page where we've got thousands of members just like yourself sharing tips and tricks on how to get the most out of our gear. Anyway, that's it. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.